Let's do a tire rotation on a 2013 Hyundai Elantra. Here's everything you'll need. I'll link everything I use below. You don't have to use power tools. I did just to make it faster. You can get this done in probably an hour, even if it's your first time if you have power tools, but you can do it with hand tools. 21mm socket. I'll link a video on how to lift up the front end of a Hyundai Elantra, and I'll show you in this video how to do the back end. I feel like it's easier just to have everything all up because you're going to do a forward cross, since the Hyundai Elantra is a front-wheel drive engine, and and because of the tire tread that I have, it's a non-directional tire. But if you have directional tires and I guess a front-wheel drive engine, then yours will be different. You can check out this pattern. Let's get to it. You can tell these tires here on my Jeep are directional, not only by the look, but also if you actually look on the sidewall of the tire, you'll see it says left, and then shows the arrows to how the tire should be rotating. So this kind of directional tire can only be on the driver's side. It cannot be on the passenger side. Although these tires on the Hyundai are asymmetric, they are non-directional because if you look on the tire wall, there's no indication here. And you can verify that it's actually an asymmetric tire by it saying outside. So as long as the tire was mounted properly and that shows outside, that's all that matters. I lift the front end first, apply the e-brake, and chalk the rear tires. If you're using hand tools, this would be the time to crack the lug nuts loose while the car is on the ground. Otherwise, the wheels will spin in the air when you attempt to do so. To finish it in half the time, I'm going to be using a cheap impact gun. Take your time lifting the vehicle and be mindful as you're lifting it. Be smart and use jack stands. Don't rely just on the floor jack for support. The whole point of doing things yourself is not only to save money, but to do it right and live to tell the tale. To lift the rear, I have a 2x4 supporting the bar that runs across the back end. With all 4 tires off the ground, I start by removing the front driver's side wheel, and then next moving to the rear driver's. With the wheel off, this is a great time to look at your brakes, especially your pads. The rear pads are looking a little worn, while the front pads are still looking pretty good. This is also a good time to look over the suspension and give it a once-over. Here I'm putting the wheel from the driver's front now on the driver's rear. I always start the lug nuts by hand before tightening down in a crisscross pattern to ensure I don't cross thread. Now comes the cross portion of the rotation. I still have the driver's rear side wheel off, so now I'm going to take the passenger's front wheel off so I can place the driver's rear in its place. With the passenger front wheel removed, I'm taking off the passenger rear wheel so I can place the former passenger front in its place, while still making sure to give the area a quick check before placing on the wheel. Lastly, I'll put the former rear passenger wheel now on the driver's front. You want to make sure that you put the wheel on evenly around the hub. So you can see here there's this gap inside the spokes. It should be flush up against the hub like this. So make sure to tighten the wheel evenly, otherwise it will not seat properly. Because I'm using power tools, I try not to apply too much torque, but just enough that the wheel won't buckle when we eventually put the car back down to tighten up the 2 lug nuts with a torque wrench. The torque for the lug nuts can be found in your owner's manual. Mine is 79 pound-feet, so I torque in a crisscross pattern and go around a second time to verify I didn't miss anything on both sets of wheels. I personally do the front wheels one at a time by lowering the wheel just enough to touch the ground so the wheel doesn't spin as you torque to spec, and finally dropping that side completely. Questions or comments, please leave them below. Hope the video was helpful. I like to check my tire lug nuts again, probably within 50 miles. So do a couple drives, check your torque, make sure everything's still tight. If it's not, likely you didn't torque it to the right specs or your wheel is not on straight. So double check both of those factors. Otherwise you should be good until I personally like to do every other oil change or even every oil change, just depending, since these things are so expensive. Like and subscribe. See you later. Tools are expensive, but if you think about the cost of the tires, I think the last time I got the Hyundai done, it was about $700 with labor, plus the cost that it takes to do rotations, which I think the cheapest price I've seen is $25 per time. You'll definitely be able to pay for all of these tools by doing it yourself after the first couple times, especially if you have more than one vehicle.